On the third day of my business trip, I stumbled across a video online of my husband Jensen and my best friend Violet kissing at a concert. After a few minutes of silence, I called Violet. Did you go to Taylor's concert this time? I heard the live performance was amazing. On the other end, Violet's voice paused. Then she laughed casually. It was great, but without you there, going alone wasn't fun. When are you coming back? We should go together. I smiled and said, okay. After hanging up, I booked an overnight flight straight to her place. I had to ask her, why lie to me? The plane landed right at 9 p.m. I went directly to Violet's apartment and knocked on the door. What took you so long? Violet's coquettish voice came from inside. The moment she opened the door and saw me, her entire face went pale. Christina, why are you back? Aren't you supposed to be on a business trip? She looked at me in shock. I didn't speak, my eyes fixating on her nightgown. It was a black lace negligee, with a deep V-neck that plunged almost to her navel, exposing most of her rounded breasts. And incredibly sexy nightgown. A week ago when I went shopping with her, when she bought this nightgown, she told me, a woman still needs to be feminine. This nightgown is my secret weapon I'm preparing for myself now. This secret weapon I helped her buy, was she planning to use it on my husband? I could only try my best to appear calm as I asked her, do you have a date tonight? Who is it? Do I know them? What's their name? My tone was light, without interrogation or anger, just like a natural greeting between friends. Her face went completely white. Even her lips lost all color. She was incredibly tense. Just a coworker from the company. You don't know them? She was still lying to me. My hand, gripping my purse, was white-knuckled. My gaze slowly swept across her guilty, flustered face. It landed on her wrist, and I smiled without really smiling. That bracelet is beautiful. Did your coworker give it to you too? Last month, on Valentine's Day, I personally found Jensen's shopping records, a pair of gold earrings, and a Van Cleef & Arpels ruby bracelet. When Violet heard my words, her face went deathly pale. She immediately hid her left hand behind her back, stammering, yes, my coworker gave it to me. Normally, at this moment, as her best friend, I should have naturally teased her a bit more, asked if good news was coming soon, when would she let me meet him. But at that moment, watching her like this, I only felt absurd. She couldn't even lie properly. Yet I had been deceived by her for so long. All right, I won't disturb your date. See you tomorrow, I said with a smile, pretending not to see her instantly relieved expression, and turned to leave. On my way home, I called my father. He was Jensen's direct supervisor, and also the mastermind behind sponsoring Violet all these years, and arranging her job. Dad, I need a favor. Jensen's job, the apartment Violet's living in, and all the money they've spent of mine these years. Can you help me find a lawyer and get it all back? Yes. They're having an affair. I don't want to lose out. My dad moved quickly. I had just gotten home when a divorce lawyer added me, and sent me 3 gigabytes of evidence and materials. Clicked on it. Besides photos and hotel records, there was a video account I'd never seen before. 83 videos, each with Jensen's shadow in them. I learned that their first kiss was on my 23rd birthday. I went upstairs to get the cake. They were in the living room kissing passionately. In that video, uploaded on my birthday, Violet's caption was just 2 words. Thrilling. I learned that their first time sleeping together was during that citywide rainstorm. Violet's neighborhood had a power outage. I knew she was afraid of the dark, so I drove through the storm to her place to keep her company. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Rainwater reached my knees. I was completely soaked. Violet's door was locked. She had gone on a business trip with Jensen, Kansas. 3 days and 2 nights. She didn't tell me. Afraid something had happened to her, I knocked on her door for half an hour in the darkness. She and Jensen were in a hotel suite, eating a carefully prepared candlelit dinner, completing their first intimate encounter. And the most recent video was uploaded 10 minutes ago. Background was Violet's home. She was still wearing that nightgown, smiling innocently at the camera. Almost got caught sneaking around for our date. But luckily, Mr. Jensen said he'd make it up to me. He's not allowed to go home tonight. Her tone was so natural, without a trace of guilt. I replayed that video 20 times, finally confirming that little sister, who had followed me around since age 7, who needed my protection, had grown up. The cost was destroying my family. My phone rang. It was Jensen calling. I answered. The man's voice came through, half probing, half complaining. Why didn't you tell me you were coming back? If Violet hadn't told me, I wouldn't even know. Where are you now? Should I come pick you up? I stayed silent, my gaze moving to Violet's latest video. She said she didn't want Jensen to go home. I'm at the airport. The work issue isn't resolved yet. I came back to get a file. Leaving right away. Day after tomorrow, at 8 a.m. Come pick me up at the airport. Hearing my words, Benson on the other end was obviously relieved, with a few women's laughs mixed in. Okay, I'm still at the office, so I won't see you off. Let me know when you land. The call ended. The lawyer looked at me hesitantly. Miss Christina, you. I smiled and pulled out a tissue to wipe away my tears. Attorney Foster, if we catch them in the act, wouldn't the divorce case be more favorable for me? The lawyer nodded. I had my answer. I took out my phone and contacted several important people. The first was my dad, Jensen's direct supervisor. For my sake, he was about to promote Jensen in the next few days. Marketing director of position Jensen had been eyeing for 3 years. The second was Violet's parents. They had remarried and were also in California. Violet had said countless times that she wanted them to know how excellent she was, to make them regret abandoning her today. I also wanted to know when her parents saw her with my husband, what would their expressions be? And Jensen's parents? Relatives? I called everyone I could think of. Then, following the lawyer, I drove to Violet's apartment complex. During the 20 minutes waiting for everyone to arrive, I thought about many things. Miss Christina, everyone's here. The lawyer's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. I got out of the car and looked at those familiar faces. Everyone had come. Not a single person was missing. Christina, why did you call us all here? Is it about last time? When Violet mentioned you buying her an apartment, Violet's parents eagerly grabbed my hand, pulled my hand away. Without speaking, Jensen's parents blocked them. What are you talking about? It must be about Jensen's promotion to marketing manager. Coming through. Christina, Jensen really didn't marry the wrong person. Christina, are you preparing a surprise for Jensen? Don't worry, I get it. I even brought a video camera. Professional grade. They chattered away, not knowing what had happened, but all without exception, holding expectations. Attorney Foster pulled me aside and said quietly, Miss Christina, are you sure you want to make this big of a scene? Once this blows up today, things will truly be irreversible. I nodded emphatically. Ice cream smeared on my face. I looked away. Violet's parents were already impatient. Jensen's parents had even notified their family members, preparing to throw Jensen a promotion party. The lights upstairs had also gone out. They must be asleep. I composed myself and gave everyone behind me a carefree smile, pointing to the elevator. Let's go upstairs. There's a surprise waiting upstairs. Violet's parents were still shamelessly cozying up to me, their faces full of obsequious smiles. My dad stood behind me, one hand silently resting on my shoulder, gently holding me. I could feel the warmth and strength from his palm, and also the suppressed fury about to erupt. I knew he was holding back. I was holding back, too. Dang. The elevator doors opened. I took a deep breath and walked to Violet's familiar door. First, I called her phone. Her sleepy, yet slightly weary voice came through the receiver. Hello, Christina. It's so late. What's up? I smiled, my tone light, as I asked. Nothing major. I just wanted to ask if you're home alone. I have something I want to talk to you about right now. On the other end, Violet was clearly jolted awake, her voice instantly becoming panicked. I'm home alone. But I've already gone to bed. Christina, can we talk about it tomorrow? I'm really tired. She was still lying, trembling, and guilt in her voice couldn't be hidden at all. Okay, get some rest then. I hung up without hesitation and immediately called Jensen. I used the exact same script to ask him, are you home alone right now? I have something urgent I need to talk to you about. Jensen's voice was even more nervous than Violet's. He answered almost immediately, yeah, I'm home alone. Lots of work at the office. Just finished. He paused, seeming to think his reaction was too intense, then added in a joking tone, what's wrong? Do you miss me? If it weren't so late, I'd fly to your side right now. How ridiculous. He was clearly in another woman's bed, yet he could tell me he loved me without his face turning red, or his heart racing. I laughed softly and hung up. At that moment, the previously noisy crowd behind me finally quieted down. Whether it was Violet's parents or Jensen's parents, they had all picked up on something unusual. For my 2 brief phone calls, their expressions changed from earlier anticipation and excitement to nervousness and confusion. Violet's mother couldn't help but grab my arm, asking carefully, Christina, what's going on? You called us all here. Exactly what? I turned back, looking at their faces full of unease, and repeated what I'd said before. To give you all a surprise. With that, under their suspicious gazes, I pulled out the spare key Violet had once forced into my hands. From my bag. Click. The door lock opened with a sound. The click of the lock seemed deafening in the dead silence of the hallway. The heavy door swung inward, gliding open smoothly. The apartment was pitch black, save for a faint, ambient glow bleeding out from the hallway leading to the master bedroom. The air inside was thick, carrying the cloying scent of Joe Malone Freesias, the exact perfume I had gifted Violet for Christmas, mixed with the sharp, unmistakable tang of red wine. Behind me, the excited murmurs of the parents died in their throats. The sudden, invasive intimacy of the dark apartment confused them. Jensen's father bumped into my shoulder, whispering, Christina? Why are the lights off? Where is the surprise? I didn't answer. I just raised a finger to my lips in a gesture for absolute silence, then stepped over the threshold. The plush carpet absorbed my footsteps. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, the remnants of their evening came into sharp focus. A trail of discarded clothing led from the living room sofa down the hall. A man's suit jacket, custom-made, navy blue, paid for by my father's company. A silk tie I had knotted for Jensen just 3 days ago. And scattered among them, like careless drops of ink, were pieces of sheer black fabric. My father stepped in behind me. I felt his presence, a towering pillar of icy composure, though the slight hitch in his breathing told me he had already recognized Jensen's jacket on the floor. I gestured for the parents to follow. Violet's mother was clutching her purse, with white-knuckled tension, her eyes darting around. Jensen's mother let out a small, confused gasp as her foot caught on a discarded high heel, but her husband quickly shushed her. The lawyer, Attorney Foster, stood by the entrance, a silent sentinel holding a sleek leather briefcase that contained the absolute destruction of the 2 people in that bedroom. We moved down the hall like a procession of ghosts. The master bedroom door was ajar. A warm, yellow light spilled out onto the hardwood floor, accompanied by the muffled sounds of rustling sheets and a low, satisfied laugh. Violet's laugh. I told you. Her voice drifted out, soft and breathless. She suspects nothing. She practically bought this lingerie for me. Thank God for clueless wives, Jensen's voice replied, thick with sleep and arrogance. Now come here. You know I can't stay past 6. I have to play the devoted husband and pick her up from the airport at 8. Behind me, Jensen's mother let out a strangled, horrifying sound, like a dying animal. Jensen's father grabbed his wife's arm, his face slackening in the shadows, finally understanding what was happening. Violet's parents stood, frozen, their obsequious smiles replaced by masks of dawning terror. I didn't give them a moment to process. I didn't give anyone a moment to
Breathe.
I pushed the door wide open and slapped the main light switch on the wall. A blinding chandelier flooded the room with harsh, unforgiving brilliance. The tableau on the bed was burned into my retinas instantly. Violet was straddling Jensen, her back to the door, the black lace negligee barely clinging to her shoulders. Jensen was lying back against the pillows, his hands resting on her waist, a lazy, arrogant smile plastered across his face. The sudden light hit them like a physical blow. Jensen blinked, raising a hand to shield his eyes. What the? His gaze dropped. He saw me standing in the doorway. His brain, clouded by post-coital haze, took a fraction of a second to register my face. Then his eyes widened so far I thought they would pop out of his skull. The blood drained from his face at a terrifying speed, leaving him looking like a corpse. Christina, he choked out, his voice cracking. Violet whipped around. When she saw me, she let out a piercing, ear-splitting scream, scrambling backward and pulling the white duvet violently up to her
Chin.
She looked like a cornered rat, her eyes darting frantically from me to my father, to the sea of faces behind us.
Mom?
Dad? She squeaked, her voice trembling violently. Jensen. His mother pushed past me, bursting into the room. She looked at her son, naked and trembling in the bed of another woman, and let out a wail of absolute despair. What are you doing? What are you doing? Mom, wait, let me explain. Jensen scrambled against the headboard, desperately, trying to untangle his legs from the sheets. He looked absolutely pathetic. The suave, confident marketing director was gone, replaced by a terrified, naked coward. Christina, it's not what it looks like. I swear. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms over my chest. I felt no tears. I felt no heartbreak. The 20 minutes I spent waiting in the car downstairs had burned away the last remnants of my grief, leaving behind only a cold, surgical precision. Not what it looks like? I repeated, my voice terrifyingly calm. It echoed in the chaotic room. It looks like you're in the apartment I bought, sleeping with the woman whose life I funded, missing the flight I was supposed to be on. Violet was sobbing now, heavy, dramatic tears ruining her perfectly applied makeup. Christina, please. I'm sorry. We were drunk. It was a mistake. A mistake? I tilted my head, smiling without a trace of warmth.
Was it a
mistake 83 times, Violet? Because your secret video account tells a very
different story?
Was it a mistake when you slept with him in Kansas while I stood freezing in the rain outside your door, terrified you were dead?
Was it a
mistake when you uploaded a video 10 minutes ago bragging about keeping my husband in your bed? Violet stopped crying. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The realization that I knew everything, that there was no lie left to spin, paralyzed her. Violet's father, a man who had ignored her existence for a decade until I made her wealthy by association, suddenly lunged forward. He didn't rush to comfort his daughter. He slapped her hard across the face. The sharp crack silenced the room. You stupid, worthless girl, he roared, spitting in her direction. You bite the hand that feeds you? You ruin the only good thing you ever had? Do you know what she's done for you? For us. He turned to me, his face morphing back into that sickening, groveling mask. Christina, please, she has nothing to do with us. We disown her. Don't let this affect our relationship. Violet held her stinging cheek, looking at the parents she had desperately wanted to impress. They were looking at her like she was garbage. The very thing she feared most, being abandoned and deemed worthless by them, was happening in real time, orchestrated entirely by her own actions. Jensen finally managed to pull on his trousers. He stumbled toward me, his hands reaching out to grab my arms. Christina, baby, please. Let's go home. Let's talk about this alone. Don't do this in front of everyone.
Think about my
career. Think about my parents. Before his fingers could even brush my sleeve, my father stepped forward. My dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply looked at Jensen with the cold detachment of a man squashing an insect. Your career, my father said, his voice a low, lethal rumble, is over. Jensen froze, his hands hovering in midair. Mr. Davis. You're fired, Jensen. Effectively immediately, my father continued, his tone clinical. Security has already cleared your desk. The company car will be towed from this parking lot in 15 minutes. Furthermore, I will be conducting a full forensic audit of your corporate expense account. If I find a single dinner, a single hotel room, or a single drop of gas paid for by my company that was used to fund your pathetic little affair, I will not just fire you. I will have you arrested for embezzlement. Jensen's knees gave out. He literally collapsed onto the floor, clutching his head.
No, 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 no.
You can't. The promotion. I was supposed to be the director. You were supposed to be my son-in-law, my father said, disgusted. Instead, you're nothing. Jensen's father, a proud, arrogant man who had spent the last hour bragging about his son's brilliance, looked like he had aged 20 years in 5 minutes. He walked over to Jensen, grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, and hauled him to his feet. You disgust me, his father spat. You threw away a woman like Christina for this? He waved a dismissive hand at Violet, who was shivering under the covers. We are leaving. Don't bother calling us. You can figure this out yourself.
Dad, Mom,
wait. Jensen pleaded, but his parents were already pushing their way out of the apartment, unable to bear the sheer humiliation. Violet's parents quickly followed suit, practically running out the door as if the apartment were diseased, leaving their daughter sobbing alone on the bed. The room emptied, leaving only me, my father, the lawyer, and the 2 cheaters. The silence that followed was suffocating. I looked down at Jensen, then over to Violet. The thrilling, passionate romance they had documented so gleefully online looked entirely different under the harsh light of reality. They looked dirty, pathetic. Attorney Foster stepped forward, opening his briefcase.
He pulled out two thick
manila envelopes and tossed them onto the bed. They landed with a heavy, final
thud.
Mr. Jensen, Miss Violet, Foster said briskly. These contain the preliminary filings for divorce, as well as a civil suit, as the apartment, the furnishings, and the majority of the funds used to support Miss Violet's lifestyle were marital assets entirely funded by my client. We are filing for immediate restitution. Miss Violet, you have exactly 24 hours to vacate these premises. A moving crew will be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. to box up whatever personal items you bought with your own money. Everything else stays. Violet looked up, her eyes wide with panic. 24 hours? Where am I supposed to go? I don't have any money. Ask your coworker, I said lightly, quoting her lie from hours earlier.
Or,
better yet, ask Mr. Jensen. He said he'd make it up to you, didn't he? He's not allowed to go home tonight anyway. I turned on my heel, linking my arm through my father's. Christina, please, Jensen screamed, crawling toward the door. I have nothing. I love you. I paused in the hallway, looking back over my shoulder one last time. You don't love me, Jensen. You love the life I provided. And Violet didn't love you.
she
Loved taking something that belonged to me. Well, congratulations to both of you. I offered them a final, chilling smile. You finally have each other.
enjoy.
With that, I walked out of the apartment. I didn't look back when Jensen's agonizing scream echoed down the hallway, nor when the sound of breaking glass indicated Violet had thrown something in a fit of absolute despair. I stepped into the cool night air of Los Angeles, took a deep breath, and felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. The fallout was swift, brutal, and entirely legal. I didn't shed a single tear over the next 2 months. Grief requires a sense of loss, but once the veil was lifted, I realized I hadn't lost a husband and a sister. I had excised a tumor and a parasite. Attorney Foster was a shark. He didn't just file for divorce, he waged a scorched earth campaign. Because California is a no-fault state regarding divorce, Jensen thought he would walk away with half of our assets.
He was
Sorely mistaken. We dragged him into a forensic financial audit. Every single gift, every luxury, vacation, every piece of jewelry he had bought Violet over the past 3 years had been purchased using joint funds, money that I had overwhelmingly contributed.
to.
Under the law, this was dissipation of marital assets. When Jensen sat across from me at the mediation table a month later, he was unrecognizable. He had lost at least 15 pounds. His eyes were bloodshot, surrounded by deep, dark bags. He was wearing an off-the-rack suit that hung loosely on his frame. Without my father's company, without the grooming and styling I had provided, he was just an ordinary, aging, desperate man. Violet sat next to him, looking even worse. The glossy, pampered aura she used to carry was gone. She was wearing a plain sweater, her roots showing, her nails unmanicured. The tension between them was palpable. They weren't sitting close together. They didn't even look at each other. The thrill of their illicit romance had clearly died the second they had to share a cramped, cheap studio apartment in a bad neighborhood, drowning in legal fees. This is our final offer, Attorney Foster said, sliding a document across the table. My client retains 100% of the primary residence, all investment, portfolios, and her entire savings, in exchange for not pursuing a civil fraud case regarding the embezzled company funds, which carries a very real threat of prison time, Mr. Jensen. You will accept a $0 alimony payout, assume all of your personal credit card debt, and sign over your vehicle. Jensen stared at the paper. His hand shook. I can't. I have $40,000 in credit card debt. I don't have a job. How am I supposed to live? Perhaps Miss Violet can get a job, I suggested mildly, taking a sip of my
coffee.
She has a very vibrant social media presence. Maybe she can monetize those 83 videos. Violet flinched, as if she'd been struck. She glared at Jensen. Tell her you won't sign it. Tell her we'll go to court. With what money, Violet? Jensen suddenly snapped, slamming his hand on the table. You spent my last $500 on a purse yesterday. We can't afford to go to court. If her dad hands over those expense reports to the police, I go to jail.
Do you understand that?
Violet shrank back, her lip trembling. You promised me you'd take care of me. You said she was just a stepping stone. You are both stepping stones, I interrupted calmly. And now you've run out of stones. Sign the paper, Jensen, or we go to trial and I make sure every hiring manager in California knows exactly why you were terminated from Davis Enterprises. He stared at me, searching my eyes for the girl who used to pack his lunches, who used to massage his shoulders after a long day, who loved him unconditionally. He found nothing but a void. With a shaky breath, he picked up the pen and signed his name, officially, erasing himself from my life. A year passed. Time is the ultimate equalizer, but it is also the greatest healer. I threw myself into the family business. Without the emotional dead weight of Jensen and the constant, draining needy demands of Violet, my energy skyrocketed. I took over as the vice president of operations for my father's company. I expanded our markets, traveled the world, and surrounded myself with people who valued loyalty above all else. I never actively sought out information about them, but in a city like Los Angeles, word travels. Their true love lasted exactly 3 months. Once the glamour was gone, so was the attraction. Jensen couldn't secure a job in marketing anywhere. My father didn't even have to blacklist him. Jensen's own reputation ruined him. The public meltdown at his apartment, combined with the Whispers of corporate embezzlement made him toxic. He ended up taking a grueling, commission-only sales job selling timeshares, working 70-hour weeks just to make minimum payments on his crushing debt. Violet, realizing that Jensen was no longer her golden ticket, left him. She tried to crawl back to the wealthy social circles I had introduced her to, but my friends slammed their doors in her face. She was a pariah. The last I heard, she was working as a hostess at a mid-tier restaurant in the valley, desperately trying to flirt with older men who wanted nothing to do with her drama. Her parents had changed their phone numbers. They got exactly what they deserved. Each other, and then nothing. It was a Tuesday evening in late October. The air was crisp, the sky painted in brilliant strokes of violet and gold. I was walking out of a high-end restaurant in Beverly Hills after closing a massive merger deal. I was wearing a sharp, white suit, feeling the lingering warmth of the champagne I had shared with my father and our new partners. As I waited for the valet to bring my car around, I noticed a man arguing with a
Parking attendant near the alleyway.
He was wearing a faded, poorly fitted uniform shirt. He held a stack of promotional flyers in his hand. He looked exhausted, his shoulders slumped, his hair thinning. It was Jensen. He was passing out flyers for a cheap valet service or a car wash, I couldn't tell. As if feeling my gaze, he turned his head. Through the golden hour light, our eyes met. For a second, the bustling noise of the Los Angeles streets seemed to fade. I saw the absolute shock register on his face, followed instantly by a wave of crushing, paralyzing shame. He looked at my tailored suit, my radiant expression, the sleek black town car that was just pulling up to the curb for me. Then he looked down at his own calloused hands and the cheap flyers. He didn't step forward.
He didn't speak.
He just lowered his head, turning his face away to hide in the shadows of the alley, shrinking into the background of a life he once ruled. The valet opened the door for me. Your car, Miss Davis. Thank you, I said smoothly. I slipped into the back seat, the scent of fresh leather wrapping around me. As the car pulled away, merging into the vibrant, moving lights of the city, I
Didn't look back at the alley.
didn't need to. The past was finally dead, and the future was entirely mine.